Welcome to The Noble Marriage, where we bring relatable, raw, and real conversations about life and marriage.
We do. I'm Travis.
And I'm Adele. Welcome to episode 4.
Hey, babe.
Hey, handsome.
You
Good
ready?
to see you today.
Good to see you too. You ready?
I'm ready.
It seems like it's been a minute.
Can you believe it's episode 4 already?
I can't.
Wow.
So far, we talked about these facades, these fig leaves that we put up around ourselves to keep people seeing the best of us.
Right.
The fake version that we want people to see of us, not revealing who we really are.
Right. And then we talked about love. What real love is and how do we find it? And we ended that episode with a really powerful question of where do you get your concept of love? From the world or from God? So if you haven't checked out those episodes, you're going to want to go back and watch those because this is an ongoing series. If you're just joining us, you're going to want to start at the beginning and follow along as we share our story from all the way back to now, real life stuff, all of it, all the real conversations. In my skewed view of love, and we talked about this in the last episode, I was sure that marriage meant no more betrayal. Marriage means loyalty for life. That means no matter what, it's you and me. So I was on the hunt for a husband because I never wanted to experience betrayal again. I was tired of it.
So once you get married, you will never experience that again.
That's right.
Yeah. So you talk about some of this in one of the chapters of our book. I think you should read some of it.
All right. I'll read a little portion of it. In 2005, when I met Travis, he was everything that all the other guys weren't. He had a steady career as a police officer, and boy, did he look hot in that uniform. He was sharp looking and had a good head on his shoulders. He seemed to be established in life, being 8 years older than me, and that was something none of my other relationships had. So I already was like, this is different. And that's what I say. I knew something was different with him. He was going to be my forever. He was going to complete me. Did you ever say this to yourself? Travis was also everything I wasn't. He was a rule follower. He was all about safety. He had a black and white mindset. I am none of those things. I am not a rule follower. I am all about taking risks, and I live in the gray. I couldn't even relate to the black and white.
No.
But you've heard this saying, opposites attract. Well, he attracted me and hooked me. For the first time, I felt like he could be the one. He comes from a good Christian family and had similar upbringing in church as I did. So that's a solid enough foundation for marriage, right? I knew for the first time my parents would approve of my relationship. This was a win for me, and I saw forever every time I looked at him. Aww. My idea of marriage was that once I'm married, I will finally be with someone who won't betray me. He will be the one, someone who completes me, someone that makes me feel good enough, important, and loved. Marriage is everything I've ever wanted.
As you say that, it seems like you have like a Disney princess outfit on.
Such a fantasy perspective, which we talked about, in the last episode, because I got all my concepts from the wrong places. So this fantasy is something that kind of continues on throughout my young adult life, where I'm trying to figure out me and I'm trying to figure out relationships, and it's a place that I really learned to live because it kept me safe. safe from reality and
I
pain.
was going to say not necessarily safe emotionally.
Right. It kept
But-
me guarded and closed off. Let's say that.
Right.
But that felt safe for me.
Yeah, it has you putting on these fig leaves that
Mm-hmm.
feels like some type of protection around
Right.
you.
It does. Yeah. So I would love for you to share, what was it like for you during that time when I walked into your life?
So when I first met you, I feel like I knew immediately I wanted to date you and I wanted to marry you. It was, I've heard the phrase love at first sight, but obviously I had no idea what love was. No clue.
Right.
However, I just felt like there's something about you. There's something about you that I've never experienced, I've never met before, and I'm just interested. Also, I have no idea what that would even look like how to like somebody for their heart and their, because obviously I only knew you're outside because I hadn't even met you yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were a waitress and I just happened to see you and we haven't had a conversation. So I only can see the exterior.
Yeah, let me just share that really quick because he came into the restaurant that I was serving tables, and you were with like 20 police officers.
Yes.
And I was like, I have to wait on all these cops. I was so nervous and just like, totally not noticing you.
No, I get that. It makes sense to me. I just knew I wanted to see you again.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, like, it's regretfully, my ways of picking you has to do with the worldly views of picking a spouse. It has to do with your exterior, and it was more of like a trophy for me. You know, one of the things I really loved about being around you is I felt affirmed and validated around you. I felt good enough. I felt worthy. You know, for the first, I don't know, couple years or at least 18 months or so in our relationship, I just felt complete with you.
Yeah. It did. It was strong. The connection was really strong right away. And so you came back to the restaurant the next day to come and meet me, and I wasn't there. Will you tell that story?
Yes. My buddy and I, my buddy knew you, he said, or I called him up and I was like, hey, I want to go meet this redhead girl we just met, or that we just went to this restaurant. I want to go meet her. And I knew that you were talking to her. You must know her. And he was like, yeah. And so he said, she's Adele. And I said, well, take me to meet her. So we went up to the restaurant again. And we asked where you were. And they said you weren't working that day. And I was like, oh, man. So we sat there and ate a dinner. And then in the middle of dinner, you came up behind him and tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, what are you doing here? And then he was like, oh, I'm bringing a buddy to meet you. And so I got to talk to you for a minute, and you weren't busy that evening.
Yeah.
And so we went out immediately after that.
Yeah.
There was actually four of us because you had a friend with you, and then I had my friend with me, and we went out and talked a little bit more. And I think we went out almost every day after that, it seemed like.
Yeah.
At least
we
that's
couldn't
the way
get
it
enough
occurs to
of
me.
each other.
Yeah.
That opposites attract thing. So bizarre.
So I definitely went to you completed me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to talk next episode all about what was going on under the surface for you, because there was a lot going on there. But one of the things is, we never talked about our faith. We went to church together while we were dating, not regularly, but we never talked about church. We never talked about what we were learning And really that was because we just didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus. We didn't have anything that we were seeking after.
No, I was scared to talk about that for many reasons.
Well, it's personal.
Well, yes, I would probably have used the word personal, but I don't think that's it. I think it's non-existent to know how to speak about it.
Well, and it's very intimate.
How would I ever speak about that when I don't know what I'm doing? Because I did pray some, but I didn't know who I was praying to. I didn't know where it was going.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it meant to have a personal relationship with Jesus. Like, I hear people say that. I heard people say that, and I didn't know what that really meant.
Yeah.
So I would not know how to...
It really wasn't talked about, though, in my circle.
No,
I didn't
me either.
even know a personal relationship existed. I just thought you did devotions and that connected you to God. And I just didn't have time to do devotions.
Right.
So, but I didn't know what that even meant.
Yeah, I went to church often, but I don't remember anybody in my circle talking about their faith. We went to church and heard sermons.
Yeah.
We heard preaching on Sundays, on Wednesday nights, on Sunday nights, Sunday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of the church, I never heard somebody talking about their relationship with Jesus and God is their number one priority in their life. And that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and really, I mean, we had different priorities in our life at that time. God was not a priority. And if you would have said it needed to be, I would have been like, yeah, okay. Great.
Yeah, Travis
like.
was the number one priority.
Yeah, so was Adele.
Travis, number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely wasn't God.
Yeah, and before you, I was just dating like the bad boys. And I think a lot of that was just running from control from my parents and not being allowed to date growing up. So I never learned healthy choices on who to date and what to look for in a young man. And so what I was looking for is rebelling against my parents. And then I didn't know how to stop that pattern.
Wow.
And I really got stuck in all these unhealthy relationships that when you came along, I really was desperate for something different. And I think that's why I was so strongly attracted to you, because you were nothing. I mean, you're a cop and you obey all the rules. And the guys I had dated were not that. And so that was something I wanted, but I never thought through what kind of life that would bring for me, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think it's also interesting that you wanted to be treated well. You wanted to be treated like a princess. You wanted, I imagine, a great marriage, and I imagine you wanted a lot of positive things in the person that you're going to marry.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you also don't have the words around what that characteristics would be, like a man of integrity, a man who is surrendering himself to Jesus.
Right.
Those are probably not things that you even would think about.
Yeah. Yeah. And up until there wasn't any relationship that I actually considered could be marriage material. So when you came along, I could just see forever with you, because I was like, you are marriage material, buddy. I'm coming for you. And I did. I really pursued you just as much as you pursued me. And then the other thing I never really thought through, because you were transparent with me and you said that you had been dating several other women casually and that you were cutting all of that off. And so in my mind, I was like, well, of course he would, because if we are forever, then I will be your forever. Duh.
Yeah, I obviously did not think that through, nor did I know the consequences of my actions of me wanting to date multiple women.
Right.
Or even how inappropriate that is, the objectification that is, it's very unhealthy.
It's all for you. It's for selfish.
Every bit of it is selfish and unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, well, that's okay because he's not going to do that anymore. And I am it. You're dating me now. And I just assumed that his lifestyle would change because of that and that would be a thing of the past. And yeah.
And I imagine you thought you could fix that whenever you married me.
Yes, I actually want to read one more paragraph because I talk about that. That was my mindset. I felt like if there's things I don't really like about you, I can just alter that later. So I said I still needed my independence, meaning no one controls me. And I was determined not to give that up. He really respected me for this and really seemed to understand my thoughts and opinions. He seemed to be open to me sharing my emotions most of the time. But my thoughts were, we can always work more on that after we get married. I mean, he can't be everything I've hoped for, right? There will always be things I don't like about him, no matter who it is. And I can't change the things, or I said, and I can always change the things I don't like about him later. But for now, I just won't think about those things because the last thing I want to do is scare him off. Ugh. I just want to go back to my young, naive self and be like, wake up. What are you doing? You're just so like living in this world of denial. And it was starting to happen very early on here that I was seeing little things that I didn't like. And I was like, I just can't address that because I might scare you off and you're marriage material and I'm keeping you.
I imagine that resonates with some people listening to this right now.
Is it resonating with you?
What you just said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really needed security in order to even have conversation about things that I was unhappy about. And we didn't have that.
Do you mean emotional safety?
Emotional safety, yeah.
Yeah.
And just the security in the relationship. And I think what I mean more is once we're married, I will have security.
Makes total sense because there's less of a chance of me just
leaving.
Packing up and leaving
Exactly.
if we have the marriage.
Now we have vows. It makes
sense that we're going to wait till marriage and then we fix each other.
Right.
But prior to marriage, there's this chance that
right. So we just won't address. I won't address the things that I am nervous that might make you leave.
Create a checklist.
Exactly.
Like a punch list to do later.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to knock that out, knock that out, knock that out.
Yep.
We'll fix Travis.
Yes.
Like a 5-year fix plan.
It's exactly what was going on for me. Have you had the same thoughts of, I'll just fix that about my spouse at another time or later on in our relationship?
Or maybe you're currently trying to fix that one thing in your spouse that just really annoys and irritates you and you can't stand. And you want it fixed.
Yeah. I mean, here's a really great example. You said, I don't want any more children. And I was like, oh, that's going to be a problem. I'll just change that after we get married.
I was so surprised you never even brought it up.
No, and I found out in our premarital counseling, which was like fill out a form and then talk about the questions, but not talk about the questions because I don't want to scare you off. So I'll agree with everything that you say because I'm agreeable and I want you to like me.
Mm.
Yeah.
But that lands too.
I learned a lot in our premarital counseling where I was like, don't like that. Nope. We'll fix that later. Doesn't want kids. Well, it's not really up to him. I even had thoughts of, I'll just get pregnant. You won't know that happened. So.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Deceit.
Yeah. Well, so much of, I didn't know who I was. I was not strong in my identity. We're going to talk a lot more about this later, but I didn't know who I was. So I was all over the place trying to just be who I thought you wanted me to be. That I thought after we would get married, I would go back to be me because you're stuck with me. Like, you don't have choice. But what actually happened is I never went back to me, and I continued denying my own self and thoughts and just agreeing with you. And you want to talk about some resentment.
Yes.
And
unmet expectations.
Unmet expectations. Unspoken unmet expectations.
Remember this, where you have expectations and where reality lands, the gap is disappointment. And if these expectations aren't known, they're unspoken and unmet, and the other person has no idea.
Right.
No idea.
Nor did I feel like I could share what my expectations were, because I felt like you'd be like, you're ridiculous. I don't know. You may not have, but that was my thought process, because in my unhealthy relationships, it was not okay. So, and they betrayed me. So,
makes sense not to share. Yeah.
Don't share anything that could cause this betrayal or this abandonment that I had playing in the background.
I bet that's really resonating right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If that's resonating with you, drop a comment below. Where are you listening from today? We'd love to know where you're joining us. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about unmet expectations. You know, this is really where the enemy, the evil one, Satan and his army, start to begin to create a little crack in the relationship. Starts wreaking havoc in the foundation of learning each other and having these small disappointments, not communicating about it. And ultimately, over time, he knows that if he can get us disappointed, then my heart gets injured. I will build resentment.
You'll build walls. There will be a
walls.
divide between us. We're no longer on the same team in marriage. We're against each other. And soon, we're roommates.
Yeah.
Roommates.
Yeah, and that's the enemy's plan. And I think that having unspoken, unmet expectations is so common. I mean, we do premarital intensives and coaching, and it's so interesting to hear, because I hear a lot of what we've experienced, and just the unmet expectations that are there that we don't even realize are there until we start opening it up and looking at it. And so it's really good to reflect on that right there. What did you enter your relationship with? What kind of unspoken, unmet expectations did you enter the marriage with? Or maybe you were believing that your spouse completes you or will complete you. We talked about that in the last episode. Or maybe even you're noticing that the enemy is wreaking havoc in your relationship because of some expectations that you have. Drop in the comments below. We really would love to know, what were some expectations that you had of your spouse, and it has ultimately set you up for disappointment later on. I'm so curious what some of those unmet expectations are outside of our own story.
Me too.
And we love getting to know our audience and what you guys deal with in your relationship.
So you talked about the unspoken, unmet expectations from when they first met in marriage. I want you to think about the unspoken, unmet expectations currently in your relationship. Just take a look at those and see what they are. If they are unspoken, they're definitely going to be unmet. And there's going to be disappointment, bitterness, resentment, possibly unforgiveness, and the enemy is all in that. If you're going to have the expectation, do your spouse a favor and talk about it. Tell them what the expectation is if you're going to have it. But just take a look. What are they?
Yeah. And, I was just realizing as you were sharing, most of our unspoken, unmet expectations came from our origin, our family of origin.
Yeah.
So it's not like there was anything wrong there. And that may be the case for you. It might not be that you have wrong expectations. It might just be something that you got from how your parents did marriage or relationship, or how your family operated. And then you have two people coming together and they're totally different and nobody talks about it.
Yeah. I want to give an example to make sure that lands what you're talking about. I had an unmet expectation that you would do the laundry and the dishes in the house and all the cooking and the cleaning of the house. That was my expectation, and I never shared it. And I was always disappointed when you didn't do it, and I ended up doing it anyway, and I would do it very resentfully.
Yeah, you would.
And I wouldn't I wouldn't say anything.
I
wouldn't say anything about it. I would do it, and I would be resentful.
Yep. And I'm like, what's he so resentful for? I'm asking for help.
It's no big deal.
I don't want to do it all by myself. Yeah. In my family, we all helped with our own chores. We all did our own things and helped each other. And in your house, your mom did the inside, your dad did the outside. So we both entered with totally different thoughts about that and never spoke about it.
Never talked about it.
So I had resentment that you expected those things of me, and I couldn't figure out why you couldn't just help around the house. What's the big deal?
Yeah, and I didn't want to have a good conversation with you about it.
Yeah, because you might be wrong if you talk to me.
Possibly.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
A whole lot more in the future, as well as I think you're going to get a lot more clarity over the next several episodes about more of our unmet expectations that we had for each other and how they manifested in our relationship. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that.
Yes. Hey, guys, I do have a request for you, though. Listen, we want this material to get out in front of as many marriages that could use it as possible, especially marriages in crisis and betrayal that would really make a difference for them. So listen, if this is making a difference for you, please like, comment, subscribe. Please share this with people that it would really help. It really will help us. It'll help YouTube algorithm to be able to get this in front of the people that really need it. Thank you.
Most of all, you are helping other marriages heal. That is your part in our ministry. And we just thank you for those that are doing it. Like, we're watching the analytics shares. It tells us how many people share our videos, and every month they're going up.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. Yeah. That just means more people are getting healing.
And I have a special request for you. As you think about it, would you please pray for Adelle and I, the ministry, the Noble Marriage, our hearts, us as in our marriage and in our parenting, the decision making that we're making, that we make wise decisions for the kingdom of God, that we're consistently in integrity with each other. It really is important because there's an enemy, there's an evil one who does not want this, and prayers combat that.
Yes.
So thank you for considering
Thanks
that.
for fighting for us in our ministry.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Welcome to the Noble Marriage, where we have real, raw, and
Blah.
where we bring relatable, raw, and real.